Game loaded.
Hi, and welcome to an edition of Lessons Learned with your host, Rafael Piñero. I'm going to talk about, briefly, hopefully, about a subject near and dear to my heart. And that's the idea of the separation between the content creator, the author, the artist, and their work. I've heard this phrase uttered multiple times in the last couple of years, most recently by none other than John Total Biscuits, Total Halibut, Cynical Brit Bain, in a quasi-defense of another YouTuber by the name of John Jafari and his rather bizarre and, shall we say, outlandish and certainly racist statements that he made in social media. Mr. Bain, and I'm going to quote him, I'm going to put the audio here in a second, basically put as part of this defense against the criticism level at Mr. Jafari from Gizmodo, in a Gizmodo article, that one should separate the public statements and positions of an artist or content creator from their content. Otherwise, it would be impossible to enjoy any sort of art. So here it is. Here's Mr. Bain. I tried to quote him as fully as possible, and I will include a link to the entire thing below.
Now let me make this absolutely clear. Do I agree politically with the things that John Tran has said? No, of course not. You realize I'm a British lefty, right? You honestly think that I would? Some of this stuff is thoroughly bizarre and obviously false. I'm not exactly sure how he got some of these ideas into his head, but that's really none of my business. I've long since held the view that divorcing an artist from his art is frankly essential. The last thing that you want to do is start to limit the consumption of media that you have based on something that the person did at some point in the past or present. If you delve down that particular hole, you're going to be extremely limited as to what you can watch. How far do you go back? These people aren't running for office. If the guy was being nominated for Secretary of State, then I might be concerned about this sort of thing, and those opinions would somehow be relevant, but they're not relevant in any way to the stuff that he puts out on YouTube, and I'm certainly going to continue watching it because it's entertaining. Remember, a bunch of this sort of thing cropped up when the Ender's Game movie came out, a renewal of the debate as to whether or not you should consume Ender's Game because Orson Scott Card is a homophobic bigot. Well, frankly, that's a personal decision, but again, as far as I'm concerned, the views of the artist do not impact the ability to enjoy the art. There's no doubt that the views of the artist directly impact the nature and the content of the art, but as a functional adult who is able to think critically, you are able to divorce yourself from that sort of influence. I'm able to consume classic sci-fi, which is often riddled with some pretty damn dodgy ideas. The book for Starship Troopers, not the movie, which was something of a pastiche and a satire of the views of the book, is very much a glorification of fascism. Does that mean that you can't enjoy it as a piece of fiction? Absolutely not. Does it mean that consuming it is going to somehow make you more vulnerable to the insidious nature of fascist ideals? No, it doesn't, because you're a grown person with established views and the ability to think critically, challenge your own beliefs, and look at evidence to determine whether or not they need to be adjusted.
Okay, got that? Good. Now, I do agree with Mr. Bain, and I say Mr. Bain because we don't know each other personally, although I always say this because it's true. The few times we have interacted in social media, which is a couple of times, he has been thoroughly professional and very pleasant. That doesn't mean he is, like myself, immune to criticism. So here it goes. Mr. Bain's position is true in as much as we should be able to separate the author from its content, the artist from the content. Otherwise, we'll be limiting ourselves to only such things that agree with our pre-existing worldview and reinforce it. In fact, that's the phenomenon of the internet bubble. That ironically, you have many millions of sources, but people tend to gravitate to those places and ideas and peoples that sound like they do, speak like they do, and reinforce their worldview because it's more comfortable for them. Confronting things that are difficult, different, is uncomfortable, and we tend to shy away from it. It's a sort of a form of self-defense. However, if I were to totally agree with Mr. Bain, I wouldn't be making this video. And I have to disagree. First of all, one should not have to support an artist, especially a living artist, because the whole theory of separating the artist from the work comes from the idea of the death of the author, right? The literary approach, critical approach to literary works, where one studies what's within the pages of a book and nothing else. One does not take into account biographical data, one does not take into account historical data, economic data, social data, or anything like that. One concentrates on the book and its words and nothing else. However, that's just one approach to literary analysis, one of several. Useful one, but not the only one. By the same token, one can separate the work from the artist, but one is not obligated to do so, especially when said artist is a public personality that has a very large following, that uses this platform that they have to push ideas that, as you as a consumer find disagreeable and hateful, and that supporting this artist would, in fact, go to supporting this person pushing more of these hateful ideas and concepts. That's very important. And that's, for example, the Orson Scott Card analogy fails, in a sense. I'm under no obligation to pay money that will go to his pocket so then he can turn around and use it to attack the LGBTQ community and the queer community and present his bigoted views on the world. I can engage with his work on an, shall we say, academic level, certainly. I could even enjoy it. But at some point, every one of us, I think, has the social obligation to say, no, we're not going to support this. My money, my time, my energy is not going to support this. If I say something that you, dear audience, finds unacceptable, and you say, you know what? I can't do this anymore. This guy is off his rocker. I'm not going to support him. That's your decision. And you know what? I'm going to support you on that. You know what? You made a decision. I wish you didn't. I wish I could convince you otherwise. I wish we could re-engage. But if I cross a line that you will not support, then so be it. So my final question to Mr. Bain is, what is the line, if any, that Mr. Jafari or anyone else would have to cross for you to say enough is enough? I think that's the real question that I pose to you and to my audience. As always, if you like this or any video on my channel, please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you when I see you. Good night.